In 2010, WeWork was founded by Adam Neumann as a modern, community-driven workspace. At its peak, WeWork was valued at over $47 billion.
If you're a member of the regeneration, make some noise!
But in just 4 short years, it went from tech unicorn to bankruptcy, and Adam Neumann walked away with a golden parachute of $1.7 billion. I uncovered every piece of this story. Adam's cult of personality, investor-parroted delusion, and ultimately the fallout of yet another detached billionaire. How could Adam be so reckless? What broke WeWork behind the scenes? And most importantly, where are they now?
We turn now to the incredible story of the astronomical rise and epic unraveling of WeWork.
Convincing people that he was going to build this next giant tech company.
The company was one of the hottest startups in history.
So investors were racing to give him money.
The CEO just had this magic quality.
It was a wild ride. In the end, no amount of money could make the business model work.
Bankruptcy, Chapter 11.
What was the appeal before things went so sideways?
Hi there, my name is Dylan. I work in technology and create content about problems caused by technology. We are racing to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so please consider helping me and my team out a ton by hitting that subscribe button down below. Back to the video.
Anybody that wants to be part of something greater than themselves is a member of the We Generation.
Who is Adam Neumann? Why did he found WeWork? And how did he end up smoking weed on a private jet, serving employees tequila shots after a layoff, and then trademarking the term we, only to sell that trademark later back to his own company? Neumann came to New York City in 2001, fresh off his service in the Israeli military, and in 2008 started Green Desk, which became an early incarnation of WeWork. The company offered sustainable co-working spaces featuring recycled furniture, free trade coffee, and green office supplies. But Adam quickly learned that something else entirely was driving their company's success. Something clicked for Neumann. They saw it was the focus on community, not sustainability, that drove people to Green Desk. Later in 2010, they sold their stake and began WeWork.
It's not just a company, it's a movement. It's millions and millions of people saying, I don't just want to make a living, I want to make a life.
Adam grew up on a kibbutz, and if you don't know what a kibbutz is a type of collective community in Israel, historically based on agriculture. The word kibbutz is Hebrew for gathering or grouping. This is very important as his upbringing really sets the stage for the origin story and the founding story of WeWork. It wasn't just an office space, it was more than an office space, it was a movement, it was a cult, but with ergonomic chairs.
The more uncomfortable people are, and the harder they work.
WeWork rode this moment where people were looking for something different from offices, where the financial markets were looking to pile money into any company that was claiming semi-credibility, that they were going to grow into something huge, and in some ways, those were the seeds of its own demise. WeWork was founded as a tech company, but it wasn't a tech company at all. It was a real estate company. I work in technology, and technology companies make software, and investors love software because it is super easy to scale. Real estate, not so much. The first WeWork location was just 3,000 square feet in a tenement-style building in Soho. It had creaky floorboards and exposed brick, which the founders power washed clean, and they used their flagship location in Soho, which reportedly turned a profit 1 month after launch, to host developers and investors and grow the WeWork brand. Investors loved it. By 2012, WeWork had opened 4 more locations and had caught the attention of somebody really important, Benchmark Capital. They were early investors in the same firm that backed Uber, Twitter, and even Dropbox in its early days. Suddenly, WeWork wasn't just a scrappy startup anymore, it was a rocket ship. We will talk about exactly how far this rocket ship flies and its inability to escape low Earth orbit in the next chapter. Early on, Mr. Neumann painted a picture of how WeWork was connecting entrepreneurs and others who in the past would have worked from home or in coffee shops, how the company would bring a new way of working to a changing world.
When Miguel and I started this company, the intention was, can we change the world?
Looking back, you can't see red flags through rose-colored glasses, but the fact that we thought that a co-working space was truly revolutionary technology is beyond me. But this wasn't just a business, apparently. It was a vision. Neumann wasn't trying to build a real estate company. He was trying to build a capitalist kibbutz, a utopia of apartments, offices, gyms, and schools where people worked, lived, and bathed in the glow of his vibe-based leadership. Wait until you hear how delusional this all gets in the very next chapter.
Everything about WeWork was propaganda.
For God's sakes, they're running desks.
It was working. Everything was going great. You know, WeWork really seemed like it was destined for greatness. Riding high off some initial success and some VC funding, this is a story as old as Silicon Valley itself. But with every VC firm and every VC-backed company, there are hundreds, if not thousands of companies that collapse in on themselves like a dying star. WeWork's growth was nothing short of explosive. In 5 years, WeWork became a tech unicorn, a coveted title truly for any company, and they call it a unicorn, a company worth over $1 billion, because of how rarely it happens. There was a fatal flaw in the business model. WeWork had paid big money for long-term rental agreements with landlords, but was only subletting the spaces for short-term, flexible contracts. The result, if a tenant quit and WeWork couldn't fill the space, it was still on the hook for the rent. Two investors, Masayoshi-san and SoftBank, were WeWork's primary funding sources. Both of them seem to have fell prey to Neumann's delusions of grandeur. He somehow believed that WeWork was going to be a $1 trillion company, where in the history of the earth, there has only ever been 12 $1 trillion companies, ever. During the peak of the insanity, you could say it's like Uber but for blank and get $1 billion from SoftBank. So Adam Neumann said it's Uber for buildings, and the idiots invested. Masayoshi-san enabled and platformed Adam's behavior at the time. That's coming up. But Adam was untouchable, or so he thought.
Words I remember hearing around that time were like, you have a seat on this rocket ship to the moon and Mars. I don't think he had started talking about putting a WeWork on Mars yet. I think it was a joke at first, and then later we heard that that might actually be something that was being considered.
Putting a WeWork
on Mars.
But shortly after, WeWork began making some atrocious business decisions in its ventures. In an effort to diversify its revenue streams, WeWork got into residential real estate in 2016. WeLive provides fully furnished micro apartments. People can join these communities and instantly tap into amenities like free internet, maid service, and new friends. In 2017, WeWork announced its We Grow endeavor, a conscious entrepreneurial school for children ages 2 to 11 years old. WeWork bought Lord & Taylor's flagship store building in New York City in October 2017 for $850 million. Because of course that's a business necessity, WeWork opened its first gym, Rise by We, located at 85 Broad Street in New York City. It offers yoga, boxing classes, and a super spa. We have arrived at our first key insight. WeWork expanded into business lines it knew nothing about. It was a co-working company. Why exactly does a co-working company need to be starting a primary school or spinning up a super spa? Despite all of these confusing business ventures, WeWork was on track to fulfill the dream of every major tech company, the forbidden IPO. But unfortunately, behind the scenes, the company was bleeding cash, expanding recklessly, and led by a CEO who preaches spiritual capitalism while buying $60 million jets and tequila bars for the office. I'll tell you all about this in just a moment. How long can WeWork ride the hype train before reality hits them like an incoming freight train? And what was working at WeWork really like in the early days? For Neumann and anyone who worked for him, WeWork was all-consuming, a place where work and play not only lacked boundaries, but were fused together. From meetings laden with tequila shots to mandatory company retreats filled with the sounds of people having sex, working at WeWork meant signing up for a lifestyle that embraced, to an extreme degree, the no-holds-barred hustle culture the company promoted to its clients. The non-stop party, combined with the promise of a big payday, was intoxicating, at least at first. In less than 10 years, WeWork exploded to become a commercial real estate powerhouse with more than 10,000 employees and was steaming ahead on a seemingly unstoppable trajectory toward a $100 billion valuation as the company's coffers filled with billions in funding, and as press coverage snowballed, Neumann's behavior and ambitions became increasingly unconstrained. WeWork seems a lot more like a frat party than a business to me. Don't take my word for it. Here's a couple former WeWork employees. A lot of WeWork feels like a never-ending party. It's always up or down, and Adam's screaming both ways, happy or not. Be sure to have shot glasses and a case of Don Julio 1942, Neumann's $140 a bottle tequila of choice on hand. If you don't have that, he will lose his shit. Adam Neumann was truly Elon Musk before Elon Musk became Elon Musk. Neumann was the pioneer for the eccentric, insane, weed-smoking behavior that Elon exhibits today. It's so easy nowadays to confuse visionary and insanity. The line is foggy, and it's really hard to tell where one starts and the other begins. If WeWork would have been successful, like Tesla is actually a $1 trillion company, Adam Neumann would have ran the exact same track and joined the ranks of Elon Musk. But I assure you, this is nowhere near the worst of Adam Neumann's behavior. That's coming up. I worked with Adam and can confirm he has speech at 100. The way I can best describe it is that he could cast a spell over his audience. I've never seen anything like it. Even his biggest skeptics would walk out of a meeting with him feeling vigor for Adam's vision of the future and ready to contribute in any way. If you've been at WeWork for more than a year, it's like 10 years at any other company. The turnover rate was truly insane. Every day, employees were tasked with new projects. Every few months, a new manager. People known to complain about the workload would vanish from the payroll. But their working culture during the day was nothing compared to their working culture during the night. Another employee described summer camp, a WeWork event funded and hosted for its employees. Oh my God, camp. We're talking about people having sex in the bushes, people openly popping pills, railing lines of drugs in the middle of crowds while watching Bastille perform. You could hear people audibly having sex in their tents all day and all night. People peeing all over the place and pulling down their pants and defecating in between the tents because they are so drunk they can't even make it to the bathroom. Multiple attendees said that pot was easily found as well. Employees compared it to Coachella and Burning Man. Burning Man doesn't exactly scream publicly traded company to me, but in August of 2019, it finally happened. WeWork publicly filed its S1 with a valuation over $41 billion. But the cracks have just started to show, and investors are seeing right through it.
It was the first time since a bond offering last year that investors were able to peel back the curtain and see into the company's financial performance, read its metrics, see its growth.
How did WeWork go from a $47 billion company to broke in just 6 weeks? In the early morning light, thousands of investors and journalists get their first real peek at the company's financial condition and are able to judge for themselves whether WeWork was really, as its founder claimed, on a path toward galactic dominance and unimaginable profit.
Take a look at its corporate structure. This is a photo from the S1. 3 classes of stock, multiple levels here.
And almost immediately, all hell broke loose. Here's how the organization was structured. Don't get it? No one else at the time did either. They rented commercial space while pretending to be a tech company. That and free beer. Still blows my mind how people actually believed WeWork was a tech company. I'm about to start a business in the tech industry. It's a lemonade stand. Please invest. Documents filed in the SEC described how WeWork was hemorrhaging money. The We company lost $429 million on $436 million in revenue in 2016. That following year, the losses increased to $890 million as revenue grew to $886 million. Do you see the problem? In 2018, WeWork lost $1.6 billion on $1.8 billion in revenue. IPO paperwork also revealed WeWork loaned Adam Neumann $7 million in 2016 and handed out millions more to top executives. One of those loans, in particular, $600,000 to President Artie Minson, was never paid back. They just forgave it. The CEO at the time, Adam Neumann was dumping millions of dollars of stock right before the IPO. Adam Neumann just sold $700 million in stock. As a founder, I've sold shares in a secondary offering to get some liquidity and diversify holdings. Okay, I get it. But $750 million, this is 700 million red flags that spell out words on the field of a football field at halftime. Get me the hell out of this stock, but you should buy some. WeWork was losing $5,000 per customer. There appears to be no scale effects, as losses have kept pace with revenue. There is little pricing power, as they are still a mole on the elephant of commercial real estate. There is no defensible IP, no technology, no regulatory moats, no network effects, and no flywheel effects. And the ancillary businesses are just stupid. What? If you don't understand everything that I just said, here is our second key insight. There is effectively no reason to invest in WeWork whatsoever, under any circumstances. And in an effort to save face, WeWork officially rebranded as the We Company and paid CEO Adam Neumann almost $6 million for trademarking rights as managing member of We Holdings LLC. On September 5th, the We Company was considering cutting its IPO valuation from $47 billion to $20 billion. It also began thinking of delaying the IPO, a drop of 60% in mere days. The collapse isn't coming, it's here.
But wait! There's more!
From this point, this story completely spirals out of control. Strap in. Adam Neumann used WeWork's company money to invest in surfing. I'm not kidding. $32 million to Laird Superfood, the weird surfer guy, and another $14 million into a company that literally builds wave pools. Because what every office space really needs is a backup plan in case things go sideways. And in this case, that backup plan is a water park. While riding this wave of delusion, Neumann gave himself god-tier control of the company. 3 classes of stock. His shares got 20 votes each, and just to lock in the dynasty, if he died, his wife would get to choose the next CEO. Not the shareholders, not the board, not any of the employees. His wife would choose who the next CEO was. Just a family affair running a company worth tens of billions of dollars. Now here's where it goes from just absurd to dangerous, the actual business model. WeWork had $47 billion in lease obligations and only $4 billion in revenue committed. That's not runway, that's a cliff. In 1 year, they lost $1.9 billion on $1.8 billion in revenue. Here's our third key insight. For every dollar that WeWork made, it lost $2 in return. That is not a business. And somehow they were still pitching this thing as some miraculous growth story. What they found, a laundry list of potential conflicts between Neumann and the company, a Byzantine corporate structure, and the losses that were growing even as revenue doubled. The company didn't explain how it'd become profitable. Neumann owned an interest in 4 buildings that WeWork leased. He'd gotten personal loans from the company at below market rates to fund his lavish lifestyle. You can definitely see how there is a huge conflict of interest if you are the CEO of a company while also owning 4 properties that you loan back to your own company. How can you act in your own company's best interest? This is a loop. It's a cycle. To make matters worse, they tried to obscure the financial rot with a completely made-up metric called contribution margin, which was basically community-adjusted EBITDA with a new coat of paint. Translation, hide the losses and pray to God nobody notices. Even their own IPO filing admitted it. We may be unable to achieve profitability for the foreseeable future. That's not a red flag. That's a siren. That's a strobe light. That's a handwritten letter that says run. 8 days later, WeWork was rumored to now be considering an even lower IPO valuation of $10 billion. By Monday, if not before, SoftBank decided it had seen enough. Executives at the conglomerate and its $100 billion vision fund were pushing Neumann to abandon the IPO. Remember those powerful voting shares? Well, not anymore. The board ended up having Neumann's voting power. SoftBank watched its $10 billion investment in WeWork implode as public markets valued the company at 1/3 of its private hype. To salvage the IPO, WeWork axed his wife's CEO succession plan and slapped some last-minute governance theater on. Neumann, undeterred, pushed to go public to trigger a $6 billion loan, but only if he could raise $3 billion first. While JP Morgan demanded more transparency and SoftBank pleaded to pull the plug, Neumann just just plowed ahead. By Friday, SoftBank was preparing to buy $750 million in IPO shares just to save face. The next 24 hours would become a mass panic to prove to the world that this wasn't an absolute car crash in slow motion. By Monday, WeWork announced plans to postpone the listing until after the Jewish holidays. Even with SoftBank's anchor investment, the company and its advisors had decided it would still raise less than the $3 billion it needed to unlock the $6 billion loan that it needed to keep operating. The day after shelving the IPO, Neumann acknowledged in an internal webcast to being humbled. It was a new low for the founder. He told his employees that the skills he developed to run a private company would need to be adapted to run a public corporation. By this point, members of the board had begun thinking about how they could force him to resign. Shortly after noon, the bombshell hits. The Wall Street Journal's Elliot Brown dropped a 2,864-word, deeply reported article detailing Neumann's frequent marijuana use and propensity for tequila shots. The newspaper told of a flight to Israel in which the owner of the jet recalled the flight after finding marijuana in the cabin. Weed is very illegal in Israel. This article was a turning point. Within 33 days, the initial public offering was scuttled. WeWork's valuation plummeted 40%, and Neumann, who believed he would become the world's first trillionaire, was ousted as CEO. What was supposed to be Neumann's coronation as a visionary became one of the most catastrophically bungled attempted debuts in business history. You might think that WeWork is the end of the road for Adam Neumann, but as we will see in the next chapter, he might be just getting started.
Adam Neumann essentially getting to ride off into the sunset, like you said there, with a golden parachute.
Remember all those delusions? The moment Neumann was out, WeWork started selling off all these ridiculous side quests. Q handled office cleaning. Meetup was supposed to build community, and Conductor did marketing. Q, Meetup, and Conductor gone. The moment he left off... Oh my God, there was WeGrow. What happened to WeGrow? The elite private school founded by Rebecca Neumann, Adam's wife, where it cost $22,000 up to $46,000, depending on how old your kid was, vanished. The company said it was focusing on its core business. Translation, the house is on fire and we need to put it out. WeWork was now a fire sale. Certainly not a tech company, and it's not even really a co-working space anymore either. After the crash, the chaos, and the $1 billion payout for Adam Neumann, where are they now? In November 2023, the company finally filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But it doesn't really matter, because the founder still walked away a billionaire while the investors all got wiped. Insanely enough, people are still throwing money at him. Dude's clearly got speech at 100. The bankruptcy filing marks a staggering new low for the company, which at its heyday won billions of dollars in funding from deep-pocketed investors for putting a Silicon Valley spin on the less flashy business of subleasing office space to workers. But weirdly, that wasn't the end. In May 2024, WeWork emerged from bankruptcy. Leaner, quieter, less messianic. They closed down over 160 locations, shed about $4 billion in debt, and restructured the entire business model. Instead of locking into long-term leases and pretending to be a tech company, WeWork is now acting like a real estate operator, focused on management deals, revenue sharing, and spaces that actually make money. They even brought in new leadership. John Santora, who is nothing like Adam Neumann, a no-nonsense real estate guy, no surfboards, no chakras, no elevating consciousness on the company homepage. And for the first time in years, WeWork is actually posting positive EBITDA. Not profitable yet, but a long ways from the growth dumpster fire it was before. It's not sexy, it's not revolutionary, but it might actually work this time. And what about Adam Neumann? Well, he's doing just fine. Moved to Miami, got a mansion, launched a new startup company called Flow, which is like WeWork, but for apartments. And in true Silicon Valley fashion, Andreessen Horowitz gave him $350 million, the biggest check they've ever written to a solo founder. Flow is another iteration of the same story, which is when people live in community, when people live together, when people obviously have differences, but they actually find what to share passions, they find a way to share business. There's always a common ground. The fact that Adam managed to get $1 billion valuation on this idea says it all. never change, buddy. Neumann had sought to buy WeWork after it declared bankruptcy, offering $650 million. He has said that WeWork and Flow could join together as partners or become competitors. Just 2 days before the final vote, Neumann dropped his bid to buy back WeWork, but called the company's bankruptcy plan unrealistic and unlikely to succeed. Because nothing says founder material quite like burning $47 billion and somehow still walking away a billionaire. WeWork was definitely not a tech company. It certainly wasn't a movement, and it also was not the future of work. It was just a hype machine, powered by Masayoshi Son, venture capital, delusion, and the kind of storytelling that made even smart people suspend belief. For a minute, Adam Neumann looked like Steve Jobs, but he certainly wasn't any sort of revolutionary. He was just this guy who could get you to believe in just about anything. And in that time period, venture capital was just handing out free money, bags and bags and bags of money. And it was the perfect culmination of venture capital and one guy who could tell a really, really, really great story. And together they made this perfectly optimized disaster. But WeWork proved one thing: vision without discipline is simply chaos. The company still exists, but now it's what it should have been all along. And Neumann, well, he's trying again. Because in America, you can fail upward if you make it look like a big enough disaster on the way down. I still can't get over how much Adam Neumann reminds me of Elon Musk. Click the video on screen now to watch everything wrong with Elon Musk. Oh, and thank you to both of my channel members. We have one new member, RPG Cayman, Jeremy G, John W, the usuals. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, click the button down below. I don't know what they call it now. Outside of that, I will see you in the next video.